2,000 years ago, on the shores of Galilee, Jesus Christ uttered these profound words to Simon Peter. "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Matthew 16:18. With this declaration, he laid the cornerstone for the papacy, appointing St. Peter as the first pope. It was a moment of divine significance, a foundation of faith that has endured through the ages. From that humble beginning, the papacy has risen to become a beacon of leadership and spiritual guidance, illuminating a path through history's darkest and most challenging times. Today, we delve into the extraordinary lives of 10 remarkable popes, men who, through profound compassion, unparalleled courage, visionary leadership, and steadfast faith, left an indelible mark on the Church and the world. Who were these influential leaders? What inspired their actions? And how do their decisions continue to ripple across the centuries? Join us on this journey as we uncover the stories of the popes who shaped history, defined eras, and transformed the world through their extraordinary lives and enduring legacies. Number 10. Pope Benedict XV, the Pope of Peace. In the shadow of the Great War, when the world's heart bled from wounds inflicted by its own hands, a quiet figure emerged. A shepherd among wolves, a healer for the broken. This was Pope Benedict XV, the Pope of Peace, a man whose story is written in the ink of compassion and the tears of a suffering humanity. Born as Giacomo della Chiesa, he was a child of Genoa, raised amidst the gentle whispers of the sea and the austere discipline of faith. From his earliest days, he carried an air of humility, a quiet resolve that would later define his papacy. In 1914, as Europe was consumed by fire and fury, the world's gaze turned to Rome. The papal conclave chose him, a man of delicate health but indomitable spirit, to don the mantle of Peter and guide the Church through the storm. The tiara rested uneasily on his brow, for Benedict XV's heart was burdened not by ambition, but by the weight of the world's suffering. The Great War, a calamity unlike any before, had plunged humanity into despair. Nations clashed, soldiers perished, and fields became graveyards. In this desolation, Benedict's voice rose, not as a conqueror, but as a father calling his children to peace. He spoke first through his encyclicals, pouring out his heart in Ad Beatissimi Apostolorum. His words, like a lamenting hymn, decried the pride and hatred that had torn nations asunder. He urged for unity, for charity, for an end to the madness. But the world, deafened by the roar of cannons, ignored his pleas. Undeterred, he acted. Benedict XV became a bridge, a pontifex in the truest sense, reaching out to all sides of the conflict. He sent aid to prisoners of war, fed the hungry, and comforted the grieving. His charity knew no borders, his compassion no allegiance. For him, every soldier was a son, every widow a daughter, every orphan a child of God. In 1917, when hope seemed lost, he offered his 7-point peace plan, a bold and heartfelt attempt to end the carnage. It was a roadmap to reconciliation, a lifeline to a drowning world. Yet it was dismissed by the powers that be, leaders blinded by their pursuit of victory. Benedict's heart broke, but his resolve never wavered. He was a man misunderstood, even ridiculed. Some called him naive, others accused him of weakness. But Benedict XV knew that true strength lies in standing firm for peace when all around demand war. His was a power rooted not in might, but in moral courage, a beacon for those who dared to dream of a world without violence. When the guns finally fell silent in 1918, the scars of war remained. Benedict XV did not live to see the full fruits of his labor. He passed in 1922, his body frail, but his legacy eternal. He left behind not treaties or monuments, but something far greater, a testament to the enduring power of peace. Pope Benedict XV's story is not one of worldly triumph, but of spiritual victory. He was the Pope of Peace, a shepherd who walked into the valley of death and dared to sow seeds of hope. His legacy whispers through the corridors of history, a reminder that even in humanity's darkest hours, the light of compassion and the dream of peace can endure. Yet his memory does not rest merely in the past. It breathes in the quiet prayers of those who long for harmony. in the efforts of peacemakers who continue his work. The seeds he planted in barren soil have blossomed in ways he could never have imagined. His call for charity and unity resonates in modern hearts, urging leaders to prioritize humanity over conflict, understanding over division. Benedict XV's pontificate was a candle against a hurricane, its flame often flickering but never extinguished. Today, his life stands as a testament to the strength of faith in action, faith that refuses to bow to despair, that finds courage in compassion. It reminds us that even when the world's wounds seem insurmountable, there is a balm in the simple acts of kindness, in the unyielding belief that peace is not only possible but essential. And so his story continues, not as an echo, but as a call to every heart willing to listen, to every hand willing to build. Pope Benedict XV, the Pope of Peace, lives on in the dream of a world made whole, a dream he carried with unwavering hope through the darkest of days. Number 9. Pope Pius IV, builder of Rome. In the heart of the eternal city, where history whispers from ancient stones and faith rises like a hymn to the heavens, there stands the legacy of a man who reshaped its grandeur. Pope Pius IV, the builder of Rome, was a pontiff of vision and resolve, a shepherd who wove together the spiritual and the architectural to create a tapestry of enduring beauty. Born Giovanni Angelo Medici in the small town of Milan in 1499, Pius IV was not a man of noble birth but of noble ambition. His ascent to the papacy in 1559 came during a time of challenge and transformation. The Church was navigating the turbulent waters of the Reformation, and Rome itself bore the scars of neglect and decay. But where others saw ruin, Pius IV saw potential, a city waiting to be reborn, a sanctuary deserving of its title as the heart of Christendom. His reign began with a simple yet profound resolve, to restore Rome not just as a seat of power, but as a symbol of divine beauty and unity. With the Council of Trent concluded under his guidance, Pius IV turned his attention to the city, envisioning it as a living testament to faith and culture. Under his leadership, the city blossomed. Streets were widened, public spaces reclaimed, and fountains erected to quench both the thirst and the spirit of its citizens. But his most enduring contributions came in the form of monumental architecture. Among them was the finalization of St. Peter's Basilica, the jewel of Christendom. Pius IV oversaw its completion with a careful hand, ensuring that Michelangelo's vision was honored and that the basilica stood as a beacon of faith for the ages. He commissioned the Porta Pia, a gateway that spoke not only to the city's defensive needs but also to its aesthetic aspirations. Designed by the great Michelangelo, it stands as a testament to Pius IV's belief that functionality and beauty need not be at odds. The Vatican gardens flourished under his care, transformed into verdant sanctuaries that mirrored the paradise promised in Scripture. But Pope Pius IV's legacy was not limited to stone and mortar. He was a builder of bridges as well as walls, a pope who sought unity within the fractured church. His gentle diplomacy and firm commitment to reform ensured that the decrees of the Council of Trent took root, strengthening the Church's foundation for centuries to come. He was a man of contrasts, a Medici by name, known for wealth and power, yet humble in his personal habits and deeply committed to the spiritual well-being of his flock. His vision for Rome was not merely of a city adorned with beauty, but of a city alive with faith, a beacon for pilgrims and a home for its people. When Pius IV passed in 1565, he left behind a Rome transformed. His legacy was not just in the structures that bore his mark, but in the spirit he rekindled in the city and the Church. Rome, under his care, had become not just a city of stone, but a city of hope, where the sacred and the sublime intertwined. Today, the legacy of Pope Pius IV endures in every archway and avenue, in the soaring dome of St. Peter's and the quiet elegance of the Porta Pia. He was a builder in the truest sense, not just of walls and monuments, but of a Rome that continues to inspire, a Rome that remains eternal. Number 8. Pope Benedict XIV, scholar of the Enlightenment. In an age when the flicker of reason sought to rival the flame of faith, there rose a pontiff whose wisdom bridged the divide between tradition and innovation. Pope Benedict XIV, the scholar of the Enlightenment, was a man of profound intellect and unshakable faith, a shepherd who embraced knowledge as a gift from the Creator. Born as Prospero Lorenzo Lambertini in Bologna in 1675, Benedict XIV was destined for greatness. From his youth, he displayed an insatiable curiosity and a sharp mind, delving deeply into theology, philosophy, and the emerging sciences of his time. His intellectual pursuits were not driven by vanity, but by a belief that understanding the natural world brought humanity closer to the divine. When he ascended to the papacy in 1740, the world stood at the crossroads of change. The Enlightenment was sweeping across Europe, challenging the old orders and igniting debates on reason, faith, and authority. Many within the Church viewed this movement with suspicion, fearing it would erode the foundations of belief. But Benedict XIII saw an opportunity. To him, reason and faith were not adversaries but allies, two paths converging toward the same truth. As Pope, Benedict XIII embarked on a mission to harmonize the Church with the intellectual currents of his time. He encouraged dialogue between theologians and scientists, opening the Vatican's vast archives to scholars of all disciplines. His papacy became a haven for intellectual exchange, where knowledge was cherished, not feared. Among his many contributions, Benedict XIV's work on canon law and liturgical reform stands out. He authored detailed treatises on ecclesiastical governance, ensuring that the Church's traditions were preserved with clarity and order. His writings, infused with scholarly rigor, earned him admiration even among his critics. In his encyclical Immensa Pastorum Principis, he condemned the exploitation of indigenous peoples, demonstrating his commitment to justice and human dignity. Benedict XIV was not content to remain within the walls of the Vatican. He fostered relationships with the intellectual luminaries of his age, including Voltaire, who admired the Pope's intellect and openness. He supported the study of astronomy, medicine, and the arts, believing that the Church should lead in the pursuit of truth, not lag behind it. His legacy also includes his patronage of art and culture. He commissioned works that celebrated the harmony of faith and reason, adorning Rome with beauty that reflected the divine order. The Pope's scholarly pursuits and cultural patronage earned him a reputation as one of the most learned men ever to sit on the chair of Peter. Benedict XIV's papacy was not without challenges. He faced resistance from those who feared change and criticism from those who sought to undermine the Church. Yet he remained steadfast, navigating the complexities of his time with wisdom and humility. He understood that faith was not diminished by reason, but enriched by it, and that the Church's mission was to illuminate truth in all its forms. When Benedict XIV passed in 1758, he left behind a Church strengthened by his vision. He had proven that faith and intellect could coexist, that the light of the Enlightenment could shine alongside the light of Christ. His legacy endures not only in the volumes of his writings, but in the spirit of inquiry and openness he inspired. Today, Pope Benedict XIV is remembered as a scholar and a shepherd, a man who bridged the gap between the sacred and the secular. He was the scholar of the Enlightenment, a beacon of wisdom in a time of change, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey toward the divine. Number 7. Pope Leo I, the Great Negotiator. In an era when empires crumbled and chaos threatened to engulf the known world, one man stood as a pillar of resolve, a voice of reason, and a beacon of faith. Pope Leo I, remembered as the Great Negotiator, was a shepherd who guided his flock through the storms of history, wielding diplomacy and spiritual authority to shape the destiny of Christendom. Born around the year 400 in Tuscany, Leo's early life remains shrouded in mystery. Yet even as a young cleric, his wisdom and eloquence set him apart. He was a man of both action and contemplation, a servant of the Church who understood the power of words and the strength of conviction. When he ascended to the papacy in 440, the Roman world teetered on the brink, beset by internal divisions and external threats. Leo's first great challenge came not from the sword, but from the pen. The Church faced theological discord, as debates over Christ's nature threatened to fracture its unity. With clarity and authority, Leo penned his famous tome, a letter to the Council of Chalcedon in 451 that articulated the doctrine of Christ's dual nature, fully God and fully man. His words were received as a beacon of truth, solidifying the Church's teaching and earning him the respect of bishops and emperors alike. But Leo's legacy as a negotiator would be forged not only in theological disputes, but in the crucible of political turmoil. In 452, as the Huns under their fearsome leader Attila marched toward Rome, the city trembled with fear. Leo, armed not with armies but with faith and courage, rode out to meet the invader. The encounter between the Pope and the so-called Scourge of God has become the stuff of legend. Through his calm demeanor, persuasive speech, and perhaps divine intervention, Leo convinced Attila to turn back, sparing Rome from destruction. 3 years later, in 455, the Vandals under King Genseric approached Rome. Once again, Leo interceded. Though unable to prevent the sacking of the city, he negotiated for mercy, ensuring that lives were spared and churches were protected from desecration. His actions during these turbulent times solidified his reputation as a leader who could confront even the most formidable foes with grace and resolve. Leo's greatness extended beyond diplomacy. He was a reformer and a builder, strengthening the church's structure and centralizing its authority. His vision laid the foundation for the papacy's enduring role as both a spiritual and temporal power. He saw the church not merely as an institution, but as the living body of Christ, called to guide humanity through darkness and into light. When Pope Leo XIII passed in 461, he left behind a legacy that reverberates through the ages. Declared a doctor of the church, his writings continue to inspire, and his deeds remind us of the power of faith and dialogue in the face of adversity. He was not merely a negotiator, he was a shepherd, a peacemaker, and a defender of Rome. Today, Pope Leo XIII stands as a testament to the strength of moral courage and the enduring impact of diplomacy rooted in compassion and conviction. His story reminds us that even in the most perilous times, the pen, the word, and the spirit can prevail over the sword. He was Leo the Great negotiator, a man whose legacy endures in the annals of history and the hearts of the faithful. Number 6, Pope Sixtus IV, a controversial visionary. In the heart of the Renaissance, a time of flourishing art and turbulent ambition, there rose a pontiff whose legacy is etched in both glory and controversy. Pope Sixtus IV, a man of complex vision and indomitable will, was a figure who shaped the cultural and political landscape of Rome while drawing criticism for the means by which he achieved his ends. Born Francesco della Rovere in 1414 to a modest Ligurian family, Sixtus IV's rise to the papacy in 1471 was nothing short of remarkable. A Franciscan friar with a keen intellect, he earned acclaim as a theologian and scholar before his election to the chair of Peter. But his papacy would be defined not by quiet contemplation, but by bold, sometimes contentious actions. Sixtus IV envisioned a Rome transformed, a city worthy of its ancient glory and central to the Renaissance's cultural rebirth. Under his leadership, the Eternal City became a canvas for artistic and architectural splendor. He commissioned the Sistine Chapel, a masterpiece that still stands as a testament to human creativity and divine inspiration. This sacred space, named in his honor, would later house Michelangelo's iconic frescoes, cementing its place in history. Yet Sixtus IV's contributions extended beyond the Sistine Chapel. He revitalized Rome's infrastructure, rebuilding bridges, restoring aqueducts, and paving streets to accommodate the throngs of pilgrims who flocked to the Holy City. He established the Vatican Library, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the world, ensuring that the treasures of human thought and faith would be preserved for generations. However, Sixtus IV's papacy was not without its shadows. His political maneuvers were often criticized for their ruthlessness. In an era of competing city-states and shifting alliances, the Pope engaged in the intricate and often dangerous web of Italian politics. He was implicated in the Pazzi conspiracy of 1478, an attempt to overthrow the Medici family in Florence. Though his exact role remains debated, the scandal tarnished his reputation and highlighted the papacy's entanglement in secular power struggles. Nepotism, too, marked Sixtus IV's tenure. He elevated numerous relatives to positions of influence, consolidating power within the Della Rovere family. While some viewed this as a pragmatic effort to strengthen the church's authority, others saw it as a betrayal of spiritual ideals. His favoritism fueled criticism and controversy, casting a shadow over his achievements. Despite these criticisms, Sixtus IV's vision for the church in Rome left an indelible mark. He expanded the Jubilee celebrations, inviting pilgrims from across Christendom to experience the renewed splendor of the Holy City. He also took steps to reform certain aspects of church administration, though his efforts were often overshadowed by his political entanglements. Pope Sixtus IV was a man of contradictions, a patron of the arts who embraced the beauty of the Renaissance, yet a political operator whose methods drew ire, a visionary who dreamed of a greater Rome, yet a figure whose actions sometimes blurred the line between the sacred and the profane. His legacy is a mosaic of brilliance and blemish, reflecting the complexities of his time and his character. When Sixtus IV passed in 1484, he left behind a Rome transformed, its grandeur restored but its papacy embroiled in debate. His name endures in the Sistine Chapel, a symbol of the heights human creativity can achieve, even amidst the struggles of ambition and power. He was Sixtus IV, a controversial visionary whose life reminds us that greatness is often accompanied by imperfection and that the pursuit of a dream can leave a complicated legacy. Number 5. Pope St. Pius V, defender of Christendom. In an age when the storm clouds of conflict gathered over Europe, a humble Dominican friar rose to the papacy, bearing the weight of Christendom on his shoulders. Pope St. Pius V, remembered as the defender of Christendom, was a man of unyielding faith and resolute action, whose life became a beacon of courage in the face of adversity. Born Antonio Ghislieri in 1504 in a modest village in northern Italy, his path to greatness was paved by a deep commitment to the Dominican order's ideals of poverty, prayer, and study. From his earliest days, he was known for his asceticism and piety, traits that would define his pontificate and guide his every decision. In 1566, amid the swirling tides of the Reformation and Ottoman expansion, he was elected pope, taking the name Pius V. From the outset, Pius V's papacy was marked by reform and renewal. He worked tirelessly to implement the decrees of the Council of Trent, bringing discipline and clarity to a church fractured by corruption and internal strife. He rooted out abuses within the clergy, insisting on a return to the spiritual and moral standards that had long been neglected. His catechism, missal, and breviary became lasting contributions to Catholic life, unifying worship and reinforcing doctrine. But it was in the defense of Christendom that Pius V's legacy would shine most brightly. The Ottoman Empire, powerful and relentless, sought to extend its dominion into Europe. In 1571, as the threat loomed over the Mediterranean, Pope Pius V forged an alliance of Christian states known as the Holy League. It was a fragile coalition of rival powers, yet Pius's unwavering determination and spiritual leadership united them under a common cause. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Lepanto on October 7, 1571. As the fleets of the Holy League faced the mighty Ottoman navy, Pius V called upon the faithful to pray the rosary for victory. His belief in the power of prayer was unshakable, and his trust in divine intervention inspired Christians across Europe. When news of the Holy League's triumph reached Rome, Pius proclaimed it a miraculous victory, attributing it to the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary. In gratitude, he established the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, ensuring that the memory of Lepanto would endure in the hearts of the faithful. Pius V's commitment to Christendom extended beyond the battlefield. He supported Catholic missions, strengthened the Church's presence in distant lands, and stood as a steadfast opponent of heresy. His papacy was a testament to the power of faith and the necessity of action, a delicate balance of spiritual devotion and temporal responsibility. Yet his reign was not without hardship. His strict reforms and uncompromising stance on doctrine earned him both admiration and criticism. Some viewed him as austere, even severe, but none could deny his unwavering dedication to the Church and its mission. When Pius V passed away in 1572, his death marked the end of a pontificate that had transformed the Church and strengthened its foundations. Declared a saint in 1712, he remains a symbol of courage and conviction, a pope who stood firm in defense of faith and freedom. Pope St. Pius V, the defender of Christendom, left a legacy of hope and resilience. His life serves as a reminder that in the face of overwhelming odds, faith can inspire unity, prayer can guide victory, and steadfastness can preserve what is most sacred. He was a shepherd and a warrior, a saint whose example continues to inspire those who dare to defend the truth. Number 4. Pope Clement VII, champion of science. In an age of discovery and intellectual awakening, Pope Clement VII emerged as an unlikely champion of science, a pontiff whose reign was marked by tumult yet underscored by a commitment to knowledge and progress. Born Giulio de' Medici in 1478, his life was steeped in the grandeur and intrigue of Renaissance Florence, a city where art and intellect flourished in equal measure. Ascending to the papacy in 1523, Clement VII inherited a church embroiled in the throes of the Reformation and a Europe fractured by political rivalries. His tenure was one of challenges, military, theological, and personal. Yet amidst these trials, Clement VII cultivated a profound appreciation for the burgeoning scientific advancements of his time, fostering a legacy that would intertwine faith and reason. Clement's Medici lineage had imbued him with an enduring passion for the arts and sciences. The Renaissance, a period of unparalleled intellectual vitality, found a patron in the Pope, who recognized that understanding the natural world was a means of glorifying the Creator. He welcomed mathematicians, astronomers, and anatomists to his court, creating a space where the boundaries of knowledge could be pushed and the wonders of creation explored. One of Clement's most notable contributions was his support of Copernicus, whose heliocentric theory challenged traditional views of the cosmos. While the theory faced skepticism and resistance, Clement's openness to dialogue allowed such ideas to gain a foothold in intellectual circles, laying the groundwork for future scientific inquiry. His patronage extended to cartography, as explorers brought back maps and observations that expanded the Church's understanding of the globe. Clement VII also supported advancements in medicine and anatomy. He endorsed the work of Andreas Vesalius, whose groundbreaking studies of the human body revolutionized medical science. By permitting these explorations, Clement demonstrated a willingness to reconcile faith with the empirical study of the natural world, emphasizing that science and theology need not be in opposition. However, Clement's advocacy for science was not without its complexities. His papacy was overshadowed by political turmoil, including the sack of Rome in 1527, an event that tested his resolve and leadership. Despite these challenges, his intellectual patronage remained steadfast, a testament to his belief in the enduring power of knowledge to illuminate truth. In his later years, Clement VII commissioned works that celebrated the harmony between divine order and human discovery. He understood that the Church's role was not to stifle inquiry, but to guide it, ensuring that the pursuit of understanding remained rooted in reverence for the Creator. His vision inspired generations of scientists and thinkers, bridging the gap between faith and reason during a pivotal era. When Clement VII passed away in 1534, he left a complex legacy. His political decisions were often criticized, yet his contributions to the arts and sciences remain an enduring testament to his foresight. He was a Renaissance pope in every sense, a man who championed the pursuit of knowledge even amidst the storm of history. Pope Clement VII, the champion of science, reminds us that faith and curiosity are not adversaries but partners in the quest for truth. His life stands as a bridge between the sacred and the secular, a symbol of the Church's enduring role in the advancement of human understanding. In his story, we find a lesson in the power of open-mindedness and the courage to seek enlightenment in all its forms. Number 3. Pope Leo XIII, advocate for the working class. In an era of industrial transformation, when the plight of the working class cried out for justice, a voice of compassion rose from the Vatican. Pope Leo XIII, advocate for the working class, was a pontiff who championed the dignity of labor and the rights of the oppressed, weaving the teachings of the Church into the fabric of modern society. Born Vincenzo Gioacchino Pecci in 1810 in Carpineto Romano, his early life was marked by a sharp intellect and a deep sense of empathy. His experiences in the diplomatic service and as a bishop prepared him for the challenges of a world grappling with the upheaval of the Industrial Revolution. When he ascended to the papacy in 1878, Leo XIII faced a church at a crossroads, struggling to address the social and economic inequities of the age. Leo XIII understood that the rise of industrial capitalism had brought both progress and peril. While it spurred innovation and economic growth, it also left millions of workers trapped in cycles of poverty, exploitation, and despair. Factories loomed as monuments to human ingenuity, but also to human suffering. It was in this landscape that Leo XIII sought to bring the light of the gospel to bear. His groundbreaking encyclical, Rerum Novarum, 1891, stands as a cornerstone of modern Catholic social teaching. In it, he addressed the rights and duties of workers and employers, advocating for just wages, the right to form unions, and the necessity of state intervention to protect the vulnerable. He condemned both unbridled capitalism, which treated workers as mere tools for profit, and socialism, which sought to abolish private property. Instead, he proposed a middle way rooted in the principles of solidarity, subsidiarity, and the inherent dignity of every human being. Rerum Novarum was more than a document. It was a clarion call. It gave a voice to those who had been silenced and laid the foundation for a new relationship between the Church and the modern world. Leo XIII's words resonated far beyond Catholic circles, influencing social reform movements and labor organizations around the globe. He reminded the world that the measure of a society is found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. But Leo XIII's advocacy extended beyond his writings. He sought to strengthen the spiritual and moral foundations of the working class, promoting education and encouraging lay Catholics to engage in public life. He worked tirelessly to bridge divides, fostering dialogue between employers and workers, clergy and laity, and the Church and the modern state. Under his leadership, the papacy embraced a new role, not merely as a spiritual authority, but as a moral voice addressing the pressing issues of the age. Pope Leo XIII's vision was one of hope and justice, rooted in the belief that faith could transform even the most challenging realities. Pope Leo XIII passed away in 1903. He left behind a church invigorated by his leadership and a world challenged by his vision. His legacy as the advocate for the working class endures, inspiring efforts to promote social justice and uphold the dignity of labor. Pope Leo XIII reminds us that faith is not a refuge from the world, but a force to change it. His life stands as a testament to the power of moral courage and the enduring relevance of the Church's teachings in addressing the challenges of every age. He was a shepherd of the people, a champion of the downtrodden, and a voice for justice in an age of transformation. Number 2. Pope Innocent XII, reformer of nepotism. In the twilight of the 17th century, when the papacy was entangled in the web of nepotism and privilege, a solitary figure rose to restore integrity to the Church. Pope Innocent XII, remembered as the reformer of nepotism, was a man of unwavering principle, whose commitment to justice and humility set a standard for ecclesiastical leadership. Born Antonio Pignatelli in 1615 to a noble Neapolitan family, his path to the papacy was marked by a reputation for fairness and devoutness. Though he was of noble birth, Antonio eschewed the excesses of wealth and power, embracing instead a life of service to the Church. His rise through the ecclesiastical ranks was not driven by ambition, but by his dedication to the gospel and his pastoral care for the faithful. When Antonio was elected pope in 1691, taking the name Innocent XIII, he inherited a church burdened by centuries of nepotism. The practice of elevating family members to positions of power had become synonymous with the papacy, fostering corruption and eroding the Church's moral authority. Pope Innocent XII recognized that reform was not merely desirable but essential. With quiet determination, he issued a decree that would forever change the course of papal governance. The landmark document Romanum Decet Pontificem of 1692 formally abolished nepotism within the papacy. It prohibited future popes from granting high offices or significant wealth to their relatives, ensuring that leadership within the Church was based on merit and calling, not familial ties. This bold move was met with resistance from entrenched interests, yet Innocent XIII stood firm, driven by his vision of a Church that reflected the values of humility and justice. Innocent XII's reforms extended beyond nepotism. He implemented measures to improve the administration of Church finances, ensuring that resources were used to aid the poor and support pastoral missions. He championed transparency and accountability, recognizing that the Church's credibility depended on its moral integrity. His compassion for the downtrodden was not limited to policy. Pope Innocent XII personally oversaw charitable initiatives, providing food and shelter for the poor and encouraging clergy to prioritize the welfare of their communities. Under his guidance, the papacy became a beacon of hope for the marginalized, a source of solace for those in need. Despite the challenges of his time, including tensions with European monarchs and internal resistance to his reforms, Innocent XII's unwavering resolve earned him the respect of both allies and critics. He embodied the virtues he sought to instill in the Church: humility, justice, and an unyielding commitment to the common good. When Innocent V passed away in 1700, he left behind a legacy of reform that had transformed the papacy. His actions laid the groundwork for a more transparent and principled Church, setting a precedent that would inspire future leaders. Though he is often overshadowed by more dramatic figures in history, His quiet revolution reshaped the moral fabric of the papacy. Pope Innocent XII, the reformer of nepotism, reminds us that true leadership is rooted in service and sacrifice. His life stands as a testament to the power of integrity and the enduring impact of principled action. In his story, we find a model of humility and courage, a pope who dared to challenge corruption and restore faith in the Church's mission. Number 1. Pope St. Gregory I, the servant of the poor. In the waning light of the 6th century, as the world grappled with turmoil and uncertainty, a man of profound faith and unyielding humility ascended to the papacy. Pope St. Gregory I, remembered as the servant of the poor, transformed the papacy into a beacon of hope for the destitute and downtrodden, earning his place as one of the greatest figures in church history. Born into a wealthy Roman family around 540, Gregory was destined for a life of privilege, yet his heart was drawn not to power or luxury, but to the service of others. Educated in philosophy, law, and theology, he rose to prominence as a public servant, eventually becoming prefect of Rome. Despite his success, Gregory felt the call to a higher purpose. Renouncing his wealth, he converted his family estate into a monastery and embraced a life of prayer and contemplation. In 590, amidst a Rome ravaged by plague, famine, and political instability, Gregory was elected pope. Though reluctant to leave his monastic life, he accepted the mantle of leadership with a profound sense of duty. From the moment he ascended to the papacy, Gregory dedicated himself to the care of the poor, seeing in them the face of Christ. Under his guidance, the Church became a sanctuary for the suffering. Gregory directed the distribution of food and resources to the needy, turning the papal estates into hubs of charity. Grain from church lands was used to feed the starving, and funds were allocated to provide shelter for the homeless. His compassion knew no bounds, and his actions earned him the love and respect of the people. But Gregory's concern for the poor extended beyond material aid. He championed the dignity of every individual, insisting that the Church's mission was to uplift the marginalized and defend the vulnerable. He famously called himself Servus Servorum Dei, the servant of the servants of God, a title that encapsulated his humility and commitment to service. Gregory's impact was not limited to charity. He was a visionary leader who redefined the role of the papacy, asserting its spiritual and moral authority in a fractured world. He sent missionaries to distant lands, including Augustine of Canterbury to England, laying the foundations for the Church's expansion. He reformed the liturgy, standardizing practices and introducing Gregorian chant, a timeless expression of devotion that continues to inspire. Despite his achievements, Gregory's life was marked by profound humility. He saw himself as a steward, not a ruler, and his writings reflect a deep awareness of his own shortcomings. His pastoral rule, a guide for bishops, remains a cornerstone of Christian leadership, emphasizing compassion, discipline, and selflessness. When Gregory passed away in 604, he left behind a legacy of faith in action. Canonized shortly after his death, he's remembered not only as a saint and doctor of the Church, but as a true shepherd of the poor. His life exemplifies the power of humility and the transformative impact of service. Pope St. Gregory I, the servant of the poor, stands as a model of Christian charity and leadership. His story reminds us that greatness is found not in wealth or power, but in the willingness to serve those in need. In his tireless dedication to the poor, Gregory left an indelible mark on the Church and the world, a legacy that continues to inspire across the centuries. Conclusion. As we draw to a close on this journey through the lives of the top 10 most influential popes in history, we are reminded of the profound ways in which faith, leadership, and vision can shape the course of humanity. From builders of empires to champions of the poor, from defenders of Christendom to reformers of the Church, each of these remarkable men left an indelible mark on history, their legacies echoing through time. Their stories are not merely chapters in the annals of the Church, but lessons in courage, conviction, and compassion. Pope St. Gregory I showed us the power of humility and service. Pope Leo XIII championed the rights of the working class in an era of industrial upheaval. Pope Innocent XII confronted corruption with integrity, and Pope St. Pius V stood as a bulwark of faith during one of Christianity's darkest hours. Each pope, in his own way, answered the call to lead, often in times of great crisis. The papacy has always been a unique institution, blending spiritual authority with temporal influence. It has inspired devotion, sparked debate, and, at times, stirred controversy. Yet through it all, the papacy endures, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the resilience of the Church. As we reflect on these extraordinary lives, let us remember that their influence extends far beyond their own eras. Their actions, decisions, and sacrifices continue to shape the world we live in today, reminding us that true leadership is grounded in service and guided by a vision of the common good. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the lives and legacies of the most influential popes in history. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, inform, and illuminate. Until next time, let us take these lessons of leadership, faith, and humanity into our own lives, striving to make a difference in the world around us.